Just waiting for Chris to jump on. There he is.
I know, no, because I was recording it to make sure everything was done. Because I changed something, I think.
What's going on, my man?
Hey, how are you?
I'm all right, man. Yourself?
I'm good, man. Hanging in there?
Hanging in as best as we can, you know. Just another week, I guess, another day, and just kind of doing what we got to do. How about yourself?
It's good. Yeah, hanging in there.
Yeah.
Hanging in there. Kids are good? Family's good?
Kids are good. Yeah, you know, I'm back to being a junior kindergarten teacher again. But it's all good, man. I see that you're doing a lot of great things from your end, you know, just from a professional development side and reaching out to either people in your industry and your profession, and also this branching out. I think it's really good that what you're doing, and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I think that's kind of what we're going to talk about a bit. And just for those who don't know that are following me but not following you, can you just kind of give a quick update on where you are right now and kind of how your year went?
Yeah, so I'm the head coach at the University of Windsor for the men's basketball program here. The men's basketball program has been around for about over 62 years and historically has been a very good program. You know, we have 5 national championships, and then we have like 17 national championship appearances. I think we have the second most national championships in, I guess, youth sports history and second most national championship appearances. So I took over for a coach under the name Chris Oliver, who moved on to do his own thing in the basketball world, and took over a really great program that he put together in the last 15 years he was here. They were, for about 10 plus years, they were consistently ranked in the top 10. Haven't been in the last 4 years. So my staff and I are looking to kind of get us back there consistently and looking to win some provincial and national championship tournaments. So we're just kind of, that's the plan, and that's where I am now. And I was previously a head coach at Nipissing University. My involvement, obviously, with you, with Canada Basketball for our youth development teams. And I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where our paths crossed. For those who follow Chris but don't follow me, I'm strength and conditioning coach at St. Lawrence, but spent some time at Humber. Not when you were there, again, crossing paths, and with the national program, which is when we kind of first linked up. And as you know, every summer we come back and we chat about, you know, how our year went and what we're looking to do heading into the next year. And again, your time at Nipissing was building a program and starting something from nothing. And so to follow that over the last 4 years for me was really cool to see that program progress and your kids progress. And now I'm sure you're going to do the same thing at Windsor and again, bring them back to kind of the prominence that they were before.
I appreciate that.
It's funny. I think I was a student at Humber when you were kind of an assistant and with Daryl Glenn and things like that. And I think our mentors, like when you were talking on one of your previous Instagram lives last week, talking about your mentors, and I think we have similar mentors, different times.
Yeah.
Similar mentors and similar paths. So it's really cool to see how those influences influence you from a basketball standpoint, and then influence me from a strength and conditioning standpoint, because we work with similar coaches.
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously Humber is a special place. It's a special place for me because, one, that's where I met my wife. And two, it's just the people that you mentioned, you know, from Daryl Glenn to A.J. Sharma to, you know, James DePoe to my athletic director. My athletic director at the time there was Doug Fox, and, you know, who was very influential to what we did as a program and from athletics all around. But those people, you know, they helped me not only in basketball. That was a small part of it to me. The big part of it wasn't just in life, and helping me mature and helping me see a bigger picture than what I thought was a big picture at the time. Because there's always a different lens to look at and a different perspective, and they just gave me a different perspective that I would not received from other people. If I believe if I was in a different situation, I was just happy to be in that situation, to work with those men, and to know that those men that we still talk about, with Daryl to AJ to James, those guys are still family to me, and we talk on a regular basis. And they're very influential to me. I'm forever grateful.
I think that's kind of what goes unsaid sometimes, is like the time in between the time. So obviously there's game time and there's practices where you guys are together or the staff's together, but
Right.
the time in between, it's the bus trips, it's the plane trips, it's the going out after games and just getting a bite to eat, and that's where the conversations really move away from X's and O's.
Absolutely.
Like, hey, how are you managing a new family, or how are you, if you're a younger coach and the coach just had a baby, like how are you managing and learning those skills, so when you're in that situation like you are now, head coach, young family, you can go back to those conversations you had, right?
Oh, we still have those conversations. That's the funny part, when we get on the phone or over text message or just anything, and very small of it's basketball, and sometimes we talk about the same things, but it's just so good to hear each other's voices, and I think that for that's what sport does, and that's what I guess education does as well. That all these young athletes and athletes involved, like even us, we still have mentors, and to really grasp of what they're trying to teach us at the time, we don't really know exactly the impact it's going to have, but I think it's very important for us and for everyone, no matter what stage you are in your life, to constantly learn and listen. I've always learned to have a big ears and small mouth, and just to kind of take in everything and say, okay, what is my current situation? Where do I want to go? And what's he telling me? Does it make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, maybe it's going to make sense later on. And, it's funny. I was reading something, and they talked about how young teenagers just don't have the mental capacity to see something so far ahead. It's just not in tune with mentally. They're not there yet. And maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. I don't know. That could be science facts, but I think it's very important that anyone that's listening, that take everything with a grain of salt, and people who are trying to help you are trying to find the best for you, and that's where put you in the situation where you are today. Put me in the situation where we are today, because of people that are influential to us, and I think the best thing that we can do is pay it forward by being a person of influence. You're doing that through sport. I'm doing that through sport. And there's different ways to do it, but I think it starts with just being receptive and being open to learning a new perspective and saying, okay, what I exactly need to do to be better, and looking in the mirror and saying, okay, what am I doing and what am I not doing, and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part is, as a strength and conditioning community, we've been talking the last few weeks about, how are we giving programs to people, how are we dealing with COVID and all this kind of stuff. And then I thought, well, I'm hearing that side, but I'm not really hearing like, what are our sport coaches doing, and how is this affecting some of our sport coaches? And so to be able to reach out to you and AJ last week, as far as like, hey, how is this changing your thought process and your development model over this time? And so I think that's a good place to start, is kind of what was your thought process of your summer model, anyway, and then did this affect it, or how does that thought process now look?
Yeah, well, I think we're going through very unusual times, and I think it's something that we're probably never going to experience, together, and it changes everything. I think it really changed a lot. I'm a very connected person, and I build connection a lot through face-to-face interactions, and my student athletes at Windsor know that. My staff knows that. So for me, I'm not much of a FaceTime guy. I'm not much of a phone call guy. So I like meeting in person, because I think facial expressions mean a lot to me, and just having that one-on-one interaction, face-to-face. So that's something that I have to adjust to. And during these times when I'm not around any of my student athletes, because we're supposed to be around with each other quite a bit, over the course of the months of May all the way into August, and then leading into the academic season, or academic year. Now it's got to be a whole adjustment, where I'm more on FaceTime or more on the phone with these guys, and just kind of staying connected with them. So from a standpoint of just of that connection, that's different, and that's challenging for me, because I like to be more hands-on with my players and then seeing them all the time, especially with my staff. So not seeing them at all is really difficult for me. Maybe for my players, maybe it's good for them. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But just the communication and connection that I build with them, it's tough for me because I'm really close with all the student athletes that I coach because we just build that connection.
For sure. From a basketball standpoint, were you going to have a lot of athletes around in the summer this summer?
Yeah.
Or was it going to be maybe only a handful of guys? Like, what was it going to look like? And then, obviously, now, are you sending them stuff? Do you have Dropbox with dribbling stuff? Or like, how are you dealing with keeping their skills?
Well,
especially if be.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. So I think every program has its different philosophies when you're going into. I call it the improvement season. So I don't call it the off season.
I like that.
So I call it the improvement season. So basically, if we were to start, right to the end of the season, so whenever our season ends, most likely, it could be any time between, end of February to mid-March. Usually when the season ends, I usually give the guys about 2 or 3 weeks off, where there's nothing scheduled from our end. There's no team meetings. Realistically, it's just giving them a mental break, but also encouraging them to get into, therapy to make sure that, their bodies are recovering, from whatever they have to recover from a long season. So everyone's different at that point. There's some guys who play through injuries. There's some guys who are recovering from injuries or whatever the case may be. So it gives them that opportunity. Then afterwards, we kind of open up with more strength training again with our strength coach. And that's a piece where I allow him, and just like yourself, if you're my strength coach, to kind of do what you do, because you're an expert in that. So I kind of give you some insight to what I want to see. But at the end of it all, that's your area of expertise, and then you kind of take it from there. And we kind of work backwards. So where these individuals want to be, where we want each individual to become, training camp sometime at the end of August, and kind of work backwards from there. So for the month of really end of March, early April, we're having open scrimmages. Then we kind of shut it down for exams. We have some open gym times where the guys could shoot. If they want to play, any 3-on-3, 2-on-2, that's up to them, but nothing's structured from our end. Then when we get into, what we're supposed to get into in the next few weeks, if we didn't have this whole pandemic, was getting back into strict, weight training with a strength coach, and that was 5 times a week. That was at 6:30 in the morning before they started their spring and summer job that we either provided them with or helped them get. And then in the evening times, it was a lot of skill development and a lot of scrimmages. So we're fortunate to be right next to the border here in Detroit, and we were going to play in a men's league there called the Woo League. So that's an advantage to us. That was going to start at the end of June, and the guys were going to participate in that twice a week, playing against pros and other Division I teams that are entered into this league. So we had a lot of things planned. A lot of the big things that we had planned too was team events. Also, some of the team events that we're going to do to build team. So team building is not just during the season. It was something that we were going to do during the spring and summer months, and from various activities to some of the activities that were led by some of our upperclassmen players that wanted to lead some activities. So we had a lot of things planned. So a lot of it really had to be adjusted now with this whole pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, it's awesome that you're getting your leaders involved, your upperclassmen involved in leading some of that stuff, and giving them the opportunity to create the program.
Mm-hmm.
So how does it look now as far as are some of those things going to, be on a group call, maybe some of those teams, or are you giving them skill work to do on their own, or touching base as far as that, or are you working on it still,
No, it's that's a great question. So my staff and I talk every day, and we actually got on a video call this past Monday. We're getting another call on Monday, and the conversation, one of the topics was, okay, how are we adjusting our improvement season now to interact with our student athletes now that exams are done. So we weren't bothering them during the exams because this is uncertain times. This is very unusual for them. During exams online, and everything's online, and they don't have their resources from a face-to-face point with our resources that we provide to our student athletes at the university. So they didn't have that. So what we just strictly did was give them a home workout plan that was provided from our strength coach, and he checked in with them every week. He also did some Zoom calls with them and sent them some instructional videos. So now where my staff and I are now is, okay, how can we get these players interacting with each other on a weekly basis starting the month of May? And so we're brainstorming with things that we could do on a weekly basis. And right now what we have is just talking about getting our players on a Zoom call, or we have a Teams app, a Teams meeting every Monday, and we're kind of just discussing, what we need to discuss that week, and we're going to come up with different topics, and some of them are going to be player-led, some are going to be coaches-led. And in addition to that, once a week on a different day is getting into a Zoom call with our strength and conditioning coach. In terms of a basketball standpoint, in terms of what they could be training, we don't want to encourage these guys to leave the house and go find somewhere in the park, or because obviously for all the reasons. It's really challenging times, so it's things that we got to do inside. But I think another piece that we're going to start working on, that in a different way, like we would have done this anyways, is working on the mental aspect of them as an athlete, as well as the leadership development. So we're going to provide resources, and we're going to have webinars where we can provide all that, whether again it's me leading, it's my staff leading, or we're getting some professional come in to lead. But these are the things that we're going to do anyways. It's just that it's not going to be where we're all together in one room the way that I like it. So it's going to be from their own homes. And so we're trying to still find ways where we could develop them from a physical standpoint, but also a mental and leadership standpoint.
Yeah, I think, like you said, this opens the door to be able to do some other things that maybe get lost in the shuffle when we're on the floor all the time, or on the weight room all the time, or at work if there's working in the summer. Is now you're able to kind of feel, hey, let's do some more mental skills, or let's do some more team building stuff, because that's kind of where we are. That's a lot of what we can do now, is work in this area until we're able to work in the back on the floor or that type of stuff. But you're developing yourself anyway. You're just filling this bucket right now, and then filling the next one when it opens up, right? Like you said, I mean, the kids they're taking the rims off in Toronto, so I got a couple hoops around where I am, but you can't. Not every kid has a hoop in their driveway. Not every kid, has something like that. So what can you do to make sure that they're still developing? I think that was a great thing I wanted to touch on too. Is with our experience with Canada basketball, we're asked to form a team out of kids who are usually competing against each other in a month, right? I mean, we got a couple weeks of camp. The goes, and we've done a lot of this, team identity and team building, but almost like accelerated stuff, stuff really quick, or drill or exercises that really bond them really quick.
Right.
You're taking some of those things from CB into, your program at Nipissing or your program at Windsor, and how have you found those things kind of being able to translate?
So I think
we've done some great stuff over the years, right?
Yeah, I think it's really unique, the things that we do from a national team standpoint, and and how we're building a team in a short period of time, and how we're doing those things, either on the floor or off the floor. I think a big part of it too is getting the right staff and identifying what their strengths are. So you're not trying to mess around to something that a coach is not. Again, bringing in the right players, and that's through a lot of targeting measurements that we do throughout the year. But just from a team identity standpoint, a lot of the things that I bring into my program is that a lot of the team building stuff that we do, it's, things we do off the floor. Like I remember some national team programs where I think it was Scott Boogie who brought these guys to, was it an escape room? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I think we did that in Ottawa one time. I think it scared some guys. But we do stuff like, I haven't had the opportunity to bring the guys over to my place here yet in Windsor. But that was something that was in the plans, something I did in the past. So I got a nice big backyard with a big pool, and, that was something that I was going to do with the team. And a lot of it too is player led. So as when we did stuff with Canada basketball, we did some team activities, the same thing we do throughout the year, and more so in the spring and summer. I think you're still building your team, and you're building your culture every single day. And of course, how you train on the floor. So, when we did a lot of 5-on-5 stuff with CB, and those are the things that we do too, very, very early in the season. We do a lot of 5-on-5, and we kind of figure out which parts we want to break down, and then kind of go back to the 5-on-5 again, and hopefully those parts kind of translate to better execution on the floor. So a lot of those team identity stuff, like I do those same things, but I kind of expanded over the course of 12 months.
Right.
And kind of just layer it as we go along. But it's just a lot of the team building stuff and how we train on the floor. A lot of those things, and
Yeah, that's awesome. I think like you said, we can extrapolate those or go back to certain things. Maybe we just do it once, like a certain exercise one time at CB because that's really all the time we have. But we're able to go back and touch on that because you're with your guys, 10, 11 months of the year, right? So. You said you had a lot of guys staying, in the area this summer, but in the past, I'm sure you've been in situations where not a lot are staying.
Yeah.
How do you pitch that? And because that's kind of where we are, like at St. Lawrence is, Kingston is not usually a place that we have a lot of local guys. A lot of them are from Ottawa or the GTA, and they're home. And so how have you dealt with that as far as, hey, maybe there's a handful of guys, but there's still guys everywhere. Are you still setting up these calls like you're doing now, and are you going back to some of those things that you did in the past?
Yeah, I think first, one way to help our student athletes stay is that we have to make it resourceful for them to stay. So that's helping them with employment, because that's a big part of it. And if there's resources are not there, then if they are there and the student athletes decide to go back. And some of them do go back, they say, Coach, I want to go back for the month of May and a little bit of June, then I'll come back at the end of June, then I'm here for the whole summer. Cool. Yeah. I would say that's fine. As long as, financially you're in a good place, especially coming to the academic year in the fall and winter semester. And secondly, if you have the resources back home to execute the plan that we put out for you. So one of the things that I do is create an IPP, so individual performance plan. And we kind of look at the year, we look at the statistics, we look at areas where they need to improve within their role. We kind of have a dialogue to where they feel like they need to improve, and we try to get on the same page. Then my staff and I create that individual performance plan, and that's part of strength and conditioning is part of that. And they go to execute that plan, and there's monthly updates that they have to provide. I still do the one-on-one meetings bi-weekly or weekly, just have this conversation to see how they're doing with their individual performance plan. Then really from there, it's if you have the resources to go back home, you're going to have access to the gym, the weight room. It's not going to be a barrier for you. Then shoot, go home, execute the plan. But when you come back, we better see that improvement. You can't be just going out there saying, Coach, I'm doing it, and then not be doing it. So those who don't have the resources, we encourage them to stay. We make it resourceful for them to stay, because we do have access to the weight room and our strength coach, and coaches are here and we're on the court with them every single day. So that's the only way that would allow them to go home.
Yeah. That's the employment stuff is the hardest thing. Like, but some schools have a lot of jobs on campus that they can flag or kind of get some athletes into those. And then also, like, for us, it's about looking around the community, right? Like maybe there's a coach or maybe there's a staff that runs a company or runs a business, needs someone around, or landscaping. The city, it's working for the city of Windsor or the city of Kingston or whatever. So I'm always trying to, like, when I'm walking through the mall and I see A&W's hiring, I'm taking a picture. And to my guys and my girls and being like, hey, like, just a heads up, like, if you're planning to stay, because a lot of them keep their house in the summer.
They do, and we're
out, right?
Yeah, where we're fortunate at the University of Windsor is that we have a strong alumni base, and a lot of the alumni has stayed stayed in the city of Windsor, and some of them own their own business. So, one thing that when we try to help these athletes find some summer employment, for me, I try to find them where is it related to the career path that they want outside of basketball, because they have aspirations of playing pro afterwards, but does it fit with the degree that you're getting? So you're getting that field experience. So after you're done, your basketball time is done, both whether it's post-secondary or professional, you have some field experience, you've made some connections. So it's not just trying to find them a job just to keep them, it's trying to find them experience that they're going to use for the rest of their lives, the rest of their life and after basketball. So that's big for me. and connecting with those alumni that fit with what they want. That's a big plus for us here at the university. It's just connecting with our alumni and helping them find employment and find experiences. And some of them say, Coach, I found my own experience and I found my own job and this is what I'm going to do. And I said, hey, if that's what you want to do, by all means. But you're right. When it comes to the size of the school, the size of the community, there's some obstacles there to find some employment.
Yeah, that was, the adjustment I made when I got out of the GTA was, a lot of the kids in the GTA are living at home and commuting to school, so you can get them on campus to practice, and it's not a big deal. And when I came out here, it was like, okay, shoot, last summer we had a pretty good crop of guys who were here. Mm-hmm. This summer, those people have graduated. Right. So now it's like, okay, well, a lot of our freshmen and secondary players are not from here.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, and the pandemic obviously is throwing even more into it as far as you're not working either. So, and there's a bigger stress there too.
Right.
But we don't have the access that we used to have. So, we haven't run any weekend camps yet, but that's always something I talk to our coaches about is, hey, can we get them together month, right? Just so I can see them physically and you can see them on the floor and making sure that they're keeping on top of the things that you're asking them to do, right? So hopefully that will.
And I think another part. Right? I think another part, Jay, is something that we haven't mentioned yet. I'm not sure if this was a topic that you want to bring up. Was just the athlete alone. How self-motivated and self-disciplined they are, especially during these times. It's unusual. It's unusual for everyone. You can't just go into, your local gym or your school gym and get into your weight room and going as business as usual. This is where I believe that individual grit comes into play. This is where I believe that you really test the individual, the athlete, during this improvement season on their level of endurance. And I'm just not talking about stamina. I'm talking about motivation. I'm talking about, self-confidence and discipline and just having that endurance to continue to increase, to improve their craft with the resources that they have. So it may not just, I'm home, maybe you don't have weights, so you don't have all the resources, but you're trying to be creative. You're it's not stopping you from your level of discipline or your level of routine, just to keep you, into the shape you need to be at or where you need to be coming into the following season. I think it's really testing individuals and really how bad do you want it? Because if you're constantly relying on the coach to get you started and the resources to get you started with you not taking any self-initiative, then it really, to me, I'm really questioning, that individual's ability. How bad do you really want to get better? Is it only to my discretion or is it to your own? Because if you're relying on the coach's hours and the coach's time to get you better, well, how much I could probably devote an hour, to you, right. And what are you doing for the rest of the 23 hours?
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's really testing all of us, all of us as coaches, how are we still able to do we still have that endurance and how we're able to build that endurance? Again, I'm not talking about stamina. I'm just talking about motivation and discipline to our profession.
No, for sure. I think, the online delivery, was an adjustment for them as far as say, I'm responsible for doing the work a little bit more on their own and things like that. And now that that's over, again, hopefully some of those habits that they built from that experience as far as hey, make your schedules for yourself and still wake up and still do these things.
Yeah.
It's going to translate into when that's not there, the physical end now, or, still reading and still, whether that's pleasure books or not, or staying on top of academics if there was a subject that you struggled with because now you don't have the tutoring that you could go to in the summer or whatever. I think we're really going to see, who, like you said, who has that inner drive.
Yeah.
To take the step and not say, well, I don't have a gym, I can't do it. Oh, I don't have weights, I can't do it. Oh, I don't, right? Because again, we're at a small school, and we don't have a lot of resources.
Right.
So
right.
Now we're, those are the kids we want to see anyway, because you need that grit anyway, because we're not the Humbers, we're not the Senecas, we're winning games because of our grit, hopefully. So this is continuing to develop that, right?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, that athletes need to learn today and those who are listening to our conversation now is just developing that endurance, and you can't just do things when it's convenient for you. You can't just do things because when someone tells you that you're good or it makes you feel good. I think, the level of endurance and motivation you have to have is unconditional. You're going to do it regardless because it's something that you set out for yourself and that you're challenging yourself to do those things. That's where you really separate yourself over the spring and summer months. Again, I call it the improvement season, because you really get to see who's willing to do the work when not coaches are there. It's not you don't have a strict, I guess, schedule, from, classes to study hall to tutoring to getting to your team practice and individuals. Like, it's now you creating your own schedule over the spring and summer months and developing your improvement season plan and exactly how are you going to do that? And do you have the level of endurance to do it, especially the days that you don't want to do it? There's going to be a lot more days where you don't want to do it than the days that you do want to do it.
Right.
And I think that's when the separation comes into play. And I think that's what athletes need to learn, is just having that endurance. And if they don't understand what that endurance means, then you got to find someone that's doing that, that's living that, and it doesn't have to be within sport. Like, I've learned the level of endurance from professionals in different, careers. So you just got to find that role model that you have, who has that endurance. Say, how do you do it? Who taught you, and why do you do it, and how do you do it, and and that's what's your daily schedule like. And I think we got to use each other to kind of build that endurance.
Yeah, I think that's such a great way to put it. Is the off season is long. It's 4 months, 4.5 months. Like, after the season, everybody's like, okay, they're in the gym every day. Oh, I'm going to get better. We had a bad loss or whatever. Like, let's go. I'm ready to get. And I'm like, I love the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I want to see the same enthusiasm we have now on March 22nd, in July 6th, in the dog days of summer, in the middle of what your friends are saying, let's go out, or let's, whatever. You don't have to work out today, man. It's cool.
Yeah.
I want to see that level, and I think endurance is a great way to say, hey, man, like, this is a marathon, right? And it goes.
Yeah.
We got to keep doing it every day and every week. And I think the check-ins, like you're saying, like, even though we're not together, every week we're going to call, or every week we're going to talk as a team, or we're going to keep these check-ins happening. So there's not someone that just, falls off the rails for 3-4 weeks. And then it's like, whoa, you got to bring them back up. Right. So.
Yeah. I think, it's very important. And, I wish when I was younger, when I played, obviously we always say, I wish if I knew what I knew now, it would have been totally different. But I think the best thing we could do, like I said, the weekly check-ins is great. I don't want to use the weekly check-ins as a way that I feel like, okay, I'm checking in to see what you've done. Have you been doing it? 'Cause I need to have the trust that you are doing it. And I know when before we got on the call, you asked me, what are my non-negotiables?
Yeah.
Can we get to that?
Yeah, let's go.
So
that was perfect. Perfect segue there. Yeah.
So not just from a basketball standpoint, I think that's
that's what I mean.
From an external, I think for non-negotiables for me, it has to do a lot with character. So one thing that I've always said to people that know me is that I have a really hard time connecting, and I feel like I do a really good job connecting with individuals. Have a really hard time connecting with people that don't try.
Yeah, I'm right there. Yeah.
And I think that's when we are in a competitive environment, and the world is competitive in every aspect. You're competing for high grades. You're competing to be an honor roll. You're competing to be an academic All-Canadian. You're competing to get this job because later on there's only one position, and there's gonna be hundreds, if not thousands, of people applying for that position. You're always competitive, and I think trying is a skill. And the people that don't try, especially the people that say, I want this and I want to do this, but then they're not willing to put in the work. That's non-negotiable for me, because I think you're always trying to give your best efforts. And sometimes the way you try may not be right, but at least you're still trying because you're trying to figure it out. The second big non-negotiable for me is not being a team player. And I think, you first and foremost, you're a team player with your family. Not every situation is a utopia situation. But I think just being a team player of exactly is what is the team's vision, what is their mission, what is the goals that are set out for the team that's either developed by the coaches or the players. In my program, the players develop our goals for the season. And then what is your role, and are you accepting of that role, and are you giving your best efforts? And part of that is trying. So not trying, not being a team player is really non-negotiable for me. I'm a very family man, so the way I coach is very family-like, and that's the culture of our program. Is that I'm willing to do anything I can for my family to succeed, even if it's not best for me. And it's hard to really accept that. But sometimes it's bigger than you, and some roles where you have a much more a bigger role where maybe it's relying, like they're relying on you. And are you continue to take that role and not say, well, I don't want to do it anymore because too many people are relying on me, and that's part of being competitive and being part of a team. So again, there's two things that come to mind when it comes to character: is people that don't try and the people who are not team players.
Yeah, I think the important part is that some of that's coming from the players. I think that's so important. I mean, they have to feel like they own that culture and they're building it and they're growing it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part is that you communicate it with them, and you constantly communicate with them as far as like what their roles are, and,
absolutely,
what your expectations are, and nobody, I don't think, kind of is guessing, or it's like, well, I don't know what my role is, or I don't know what our team. Like, I think it's so important, but sometimes it goes unsaid, or it will be said, and then it won't be said again. It won't be like touched on throughout the year.
No, I think a big part of that too is constant communication, being transparent. And in my program, I meet with each of my players weekly, and the first thing we talk about, one of the first things that we talk about, is their role, and I give them feedback on how they're executing their role, and if they have any questions. Or sometimes there's going to be a disagreement, but when we walk out of my office, we're going to agree, whether they like it or not. But not everyone's going to accept their role, and not to say that if they don't accept their role in the beginning, not to say that I'm not going to connect with those people again. Not to say that they're not trying. They just, we have to be more transparent, or, we got to find a way where they understand the importance of their role. And maybe, I got to find a way to better connect with that individual to how they're understanding their role. Maybe there's a different role that they may want that's best for us that maybe I didn't think about yet. So there's a lot of layers to it. But I think when you get to that point of the season where it's okay, what your role is, everyone knows what your role is, and you're just challenging it, then that's going to be, really, then you could have difficult with me. Because I think you'd have more difficult with your teammates first and foremost, especially if they're all on board. And you're going to hear it worse from them than you're going to hear it worse from me. And I think when you get to that point, your culture is at a really good point. But yeah, again, there's a lot of layers, like you mentioned, for them to understand exactly what their role is. And you're not going to say, here's your role, then you're going to accept it right away. Going back with Canada basketball, I think that's one of the biggest challenges too. In a short period of time, is when you're bringing in, your best athletes, your most talented players in the country and that age group, and you're saying, all right, this is your role for the next month. And it's something a role that you probably didn't have from the beginning. And it's very different, because every guy is their guy probably on their own team. Now you're saying, look, you're probably going to be the 9, 10, 11, 12 man here. Can you accept that? And, the challenge is everywhere. But I think when it comes to non-negotiable for me and not being a team player is when you already know where you should stand and you're not, and you continue to challenge it. That's when it's non-negotiable for me.
And then did you see, it's finished year one at Windsor, but did you see guys at Nipissing, when you went through a whole class of guys, some of those things resonating or not resonating with the new guys, but with the older guys, it was fine. Does that make sense? Like,
I think you see it anyway.
Like sometimes your culture gets lost. Like sometimes, you put words on the wall, or you put, whatever. And those things don't resonate with this new group because they didn't make those things. They didn't have input into those things.
I think in any team, it's going to be challenged. And I think it's good when it's challenged at the same time, because if players are challenging it, and it makes you think of, well, am I taking the right approach here? Or is this the right role for the individual? Maybe there's something more that I'm not challenging, or maybe I'm not exposing his strength. So I think it happens every year. Every team I've been on, there's always been a challenge. Some are worse than others. But what I found, what really helped, was the leadership of your veterans who understand, what their role was, because they've been through it. They either been through it where their role was very minimum to start, and then as the years went on, it expanded. And how it expanded is because they were still able to develop, or they're still able to live with the team's vision, values, and then standards. They were mentored by another veteran when they were younger, and on how to accept a role when coming in as a freshman and a sophomore and moving all the way up, and now you're in that role of empowerment to the youth, and you're kind of just passing it on from there, and that's a sign of a really good culture. And I think that when young guys come in and they expect a bigger role, but they're hearing it not only from the coaches but from the people who've been through it, and your upperclassmen teammates, I think that helps with the transition of it. So I think it really varies, but I think the greatest leadership that you could really have within the team is your players leading each other.
Yeah, I think that I went to visit a school in the U.S. last summer, 2 summers ago now, and a big part of their culture is the hockey team, but they were having issues, with some of the stuff because the younger group didn't feel connected to it. And so once the strength coach was like, they get that feedback, they're like, okay, well, let's get it as a group. And what do you got? What resonates with you guys?
Yeah.
Building back up, so always kind of keeping an eye on the values of your team and some of the things that are resonating or not resonating, and then changing it and growing it and evolving it. And I think that's something you do really, really well, because you're having those conversations all the time. Right?
Well, I think part of it, I think in any group setting, when you have someone new to the group, I think the first thing is there a sense of belonging, for that individual. So that individual, I think if we were to go to any new setting, we want to know, where do I belong here? Is this my type of crew that that I could be with and I could connect with? But before that connection happens, there's got to be a sense of belonging to what they need to know. What's my purpose of being here? And I think, as a coach, we have to let them know what their purpose is and how they belong. And I think when they feel that sense of belonging, the next part is okay, is this an environment where I feel safe? That my voice is heard, my opinions are valued, that I'm not pushed to the side because I'm the young guy. So when you have that belonging and that sense of safety, the next part is there trust and respect going on here, despite age gap or class gap, because they want to feel empowered as well. And I think that comes with them later on accepting what their role is, because they know, all right, I know that there's a value to this. I know that I belong here. I know how I'm feeling safe, and how my teammates are respecting and trusting me, and how I have their trust and respect. So I think before you can get anything into, accepting your role, they need to know is, why do they belong? Why did you choose me? Why am I here? They may have a different perspective to why they're there. If it's the same, then great. Then you just keep building from there. But I think it's at any group setting, it's, do I belong here, and am I safe here?
And I think that's part of the recruiting process. I bet for you is when you sit with them and you sit with their families, those are the conversations you're probably having.
Oh, absolutely.
Versus an always conversation, or this is how you're going to fit from a basketball standpoint. It's first, this is how we're going to make you fit in our crew, right? In our group, and make you feel safe and make you feel like you belong in. And we'll get to the basketball stuff like that. That's almost secondary.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the recruitment process for sure. I think parents also want to know, it's where am I sending my son? If I'm sending my son to you, why am I sending my son there? Is he going to be safe? Is this a program or a coach that I'm going to feel very comfortable with? that when my son leaves our household and he's joining, your program, that he's going to be safe and nurtured as well, because that's going to be out of their control. They're not going to have that day-to-day interaction. So that's totally different. So that's definitely part of the recruitment process, having those conversations. And but yeah, I think it has to do a lot with the individual, just coming in to learn. Like, I know one of my freshmen already asked me and said, sorry, my son's coming in the picture.
Hey, how are you, Titus?
He's saying hi. Say hi, Titus.
Hi.
Just coming in and saying, what do you expect for me coming in? And I said to him, just follow the leaders of the upperclassmen to start. And, I'm fortunate to have really good leaders in our program with guys like Thomas or Taloy or Lucas, where these guys are reaching out to our freshmen and saying, hey, whatever you need, let me know. This is what we're doing. You're taking more of a leadership role there. And not even talking about basketball, just talking about how you're going to belong.
Right.
I think that's important before we even talk about basketball. They want to talk about basketball. I want to take it in a different approach where, this is a sense of belonging here first, into how you could be the best version of yourself over the course of your years with us. And I think that starts with a sense of belonging.
Yeah, I think that's in the teams that I've been around, and the great teams that I've been around. That's a part of it that sometimes it goes unseen sometimes, right? Or it seems like a small thing,
Yeah.
But it's such a big thing. I'm always on we train in the morning too, before classes, that there might be a big basketball game that night, or there might be a UFC fight or something, and I'm always on my guys hey, who's hosting it? Who's,
Yeah.
And they think I'm joking, or they think it's a small thing, and I'm like, no, guys, I know some of you live in the same house, but some of you don't, or we have a lot of new guys on our team. We got to create these situations for ourselves. We don't do, we don't maybe have the money to do a lot of team bonding,
Right.
Outside of that, but you guys can take ownership yourself and make sure that these guys feel
100%.
included. And that's going to pay dividends later on. But sometimes it's whatever. I'm like, no, man, if I could do it, I would do it. Right.
Yeah.
We have an okay sized backyard, but
Well, I think that's a big part of, this improvement season that some of these athletes are going through. It's that, when, I challenge my student athletes all the time that, yes, we're challenging them from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint to get better. Yes, their jump shot needs to get better. Yes, the ball handling, and we find areas in every individual where they need to improve and where they constantly have to strengthen their strengths to master those skills. But another way that I challenge my student athletes, and I challenge some of the student athletes that are listening now, is are you making the time to connect with your teammates? Building that relationship, not just during the season. It's just building that connection, because one, you're creating a level of, I think, trust and respect, which I always challenge my players on. Is do you have the trust, respect, and confidence of your teammates? And if you can answer all three, then great, you're doing something right. But if you can answer two or one, then obviously there's something that you're missing. But I think building that connection, because once it builds a connection, but it also builds a sense of accountability. So if you and I are connecting, and I'll say, hey Jay, did you do that workout today? And you're like, no, Chris, I haven't done it yet. I'm like, oh, come on, Jay. How serious are you? Or you could challenge me, Chris, did you do that workout today? No, not yet. Well, what the heck? And maybe we organize, hey, let's get on a FaceTime call or whatever call, and let's do the workouts together.
Yeah.
And now that's player led. It's player led, and you and I could say, all right, let's go get D Glenn now on a call and get him through. And D Glenn's getting AJ now, and it keeps going and going and going. And now, as coaches, you're just sitting back and saying, well, we didn't organize this. We didn't organize it. This is player organized. Now we got to figure out how it's being organized and what they're doing. But if it's player led, that's great. I think that's a big part too. Is it's staying connected with your teammates and challenging them, and you accepting being challenged by them too. Because those challenges can only come when it's season time.
Right. And that's when they're going to pay off, right? I mean, you can't be on the floor all the time. You can't call time every time you want one. They got to solve problems themselves, and more that they're used to communicating with each other and trying.
Yeah, I think I remember LeBron. I remember LeBron when he was in Cleveland, even in Miami, where he was inviting the team for like a weekend, and I think it's once a month. All the team would come to some training ground, and they would train all weekend. They would scrimmage, and he was organizing it. And it was a resort, wherever it came to be. I'm sure part of it was a vacation too for them, but they were training. They were in a weight room. Like he put together a schedule.
Yeah.
And that's unheard of. Maybe it's going on and not people publicize as much as LeBron was doing, but I think that's phenomenal. That's player led. Team bonding sessions, if they're player led, that's amazing. Because now this shows a different level of care. And to me, that's great personal growth. That's leadership development that I was talking about. So you look at this improvement season, it's not just about the player development, it's the mental development, it's part of the leadership development. Because another part that you're building too individually is of a high level of ownership.
Yeah, that's the word there. Yeah.
Of ownership. And the word ownership to me, the first three letters is OWN, and of course the word spells owned, but it's an acronym to okay, what now? Or okay, what next? So what can I do to be better? What can we do to be better? Like if I'm connecting with you over an improvement season and I'm telling you, hey, Jay, did you do the workout? That means that I already did it.
Right.
Yeah. There's no way I'm going to call and say, did you do a workout? And go, no. Did you? Nah. I'm calling and say, I already did it. How come you're not doing it yet?
Yeah.
So there's a level of motivation, but there's a level of just building like a sense of ownership to each other and especially to yourself.
No, that's incredible, man. And the other thing I just wanted to touch on too is like, do you do any like competition based stuff like through the normal off season? Do you split your guys up into like subgroups, or is there some of that stuff that's happening?
Our strength coach does a really good job in that because I go into their environments and I do show up 6:30 in the morning to see these guys, and they're put into small groups and they have challenges, and it's competitive, and I think it builds morale, but it keeps them competitive during the improvement season. Outside of because when you get on the floor, obviously you're always competing. But outside of the floor, some of the team things that we do with, in a strength conditioning environment to any team bonding that we're doing, and part of team bonding is part of that too, is I think you always build in competition. I think it makes things fun. We're at a competitive level. You got to be competitive. No one's giving out participation ribbons here. It's, so.
Yeah, I think that's something I'm going to, we're away from each other a little bit more. So something I'm going to add in is a competition every month, like an individual base. Hey, you got to do the workout in a certain amount of time, or some of this kind of stuff. Create some leaderboards and just kind of hopefully that builds some. Hey, I'm at the bottom. I better get my act together, or create some trash talking a little bit and some competitiveness a little bit, even though they're away from each other, right? So,
my staff and I, again, we're brainstorming, and one of the things that I had down on my list was to put these guys into some small groups, and it's a clown. I'm going to call it climbing the Mount Everest. So I can't remember how many feet it is. It's like 40,000 feet, whatever, to climb the Mount Everest. And part of the challenges is that every activity that you do, including the workouts we're giving you, 10 minutes equals to like 6 feet, kind of thing.
Right.
So you got to calculate your minutes, and it goes by 10 minutes every single day. Then the leader of your group has to collect all the minutes and then submit it to one of the coaches that's the leader of your group. One of my assistants will take a leader of that group, and over the course of, let's say, six weeks, it's this group has climbed this amount of feet to Mount Everest and this amount of feet. So it just continues to challenge them and keep them competitive. So that's one of the things that I have on my list that I'm going to bring forward to my coaches meeting to challenge my players.
That's really cool. I think there's an app. There's a company that's called. I think it's called like Virtual Mission. I think so. What it is? It's kind of like a virtual marathon or a distance based on certain landmarks, right? So when you do your walking on your own, or you do some jogging on your own, you log it into this app, and it kind of counts those miles towards the end, right?
Cool. Yeah.
So my girlfriend and I did the Grand Canyon. So every time we go for a walk with the dog, every time we do a jog, we punch it in, and it maps your route through the Grand Canyon, right? And at the end, you pay for it, and at the end, you get a medal and all this kind of stuff. But there's different landmarks, right? Like Route 66 and all these type of things. So kind of along those same lines, and I'm sure if you were in Toronto, it's like, hey, let's do the CN Tower.
Right.
Maybe you should look at the Peace Bridge, right? Like,
Right.
How long's the Peace Bridge?
Right.
Let's make it regional, right, to where you are. But I think that's awesome, just to kind of like, there's a long-term goal. Everything you do is put into that. If you're not contributing your piece to your team, they're going to be on you about it, right?
Yeah, I think there's different ways we have to challenge our players. Like I said, we're challenging them from a physical standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, that we're going to help them, get better and give them the resources to do so. Like from a leadership standpoint, I like to give out, my players are probably annoyed by me because I email them a lot, and I send them a lot of information. And of course, everything has a purpose. I like to believe it has a purpose. So one of the things that we're going to start doing is that, we're going to give them an article, whether it's an academic journal or just a regular newsletter or a newspaper article, and to send it to them that challenges them from a mental or leadership standpoint. And I think that, everyone's got to read it, but then one group has to present on it, on what they learn and how they believe that we could use this within our own program, our own team. And then after that, it's open for discussion.
Yeah.
And I think those are the things those are the ways that we're going to challenge them, because one, they're not in school. So,
Right.
we like to keep them in the routine of reading, and not just reading your timeline, because I don't count that as reading. But again, different ways to challenge them, to keep them involved. But again, areas to get better, especially mentally. Taking this game to a higher mental approach.
No, I love it, man. I love what you're doing. As I said, I've been following your evolution for a long time, and that you're developing, young men, and not just basketball players, but looking at all of the sides of them and continuing to get them to understand that they need to grow in all areas, and that basketball will grow along with that, right? Like, it's really hard to just grow one and not the other one, right? Like, the better person you are, the better teammate you are.
Yeah.
Basketball will take care of itself, right? So,
one thing I always say to my student athletes, even the kids that I'm recruiting, once we get to know more about their individual character, to see if it's a right cultural fit, is that I tell them, I'm going to be here longer than you. You're going to serve 4 to 5 years with our program, but I'm going to be here longer with you afterwards. There's going to be another class coming in, another class, and yes, this is a career for me. At the end of it all, I want to enjoy who I'm coaching. Like, I want to enjoy, who I'm coaching with, from extending from my staff to my support staff and to my student athletes. I want to enjoy who I'm coaching. So if you're going to be, pardon my language, an asshole, well, I'm not going to enjoy coaching you, so it's not a good cultural fit, or I just don't like you. And it's, and you're going to get the boot. And that's after countless of times just trying to connect and try to meet halfway, and but if sometimes it just doesn't fit, like, I'm not for everyone, I know that, but I want to enjoy who that I'm coaching, and I think that I want to enjoy them having success afterwards, after they leave our program, because I think that's a sign of a really good program, is that when they're able to succeed afterwards, not just with you. So I think a big part of that too is, having good character and being a good person and being coachable. Like, you want to be the team, you want to be the opponent that people hate to play against, but love to have you as a teammate, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I hate playing against that guy, but I would love to have him as a teammate. So those are the people that I enjoy coaching.
No, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the time, and it's been fun talking. I know you've done a few of these, but more on the X's and O's side. So it's been enjoyable to get your take on the other side, right? On the leadership side, I think there was some great stuff, and on the development side. So, we probably won't be together this summer. So it was really good.
Unfortunately, it's unfortunate, but I think it's a right thing for everyone. I know there were some people on this chat asking questions, and I know we didn't get to it, but if there's any questions that I didn't answer, feel free to directly message me on Instagram, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. I know some of them was asking about how to get recruited, and how many years have you and I been playing basketball? I don't know. If they want to ask me any questions, feel free to direct message me.
For sure. We're going to get kicked off here. So